take the field and, work out some of the kinks before conference starts. And then a couple of them, conference is actually starting.
Yeah, I mean, conference play is right around the corner, Mark. And I think for some of the smaller schools, they may be getting into conference already. I know Russellville's getting ready for a pretty solid Alma team. And Russellville got a close win over them last year. And as we saw, that was pretty much the only thing they could hold on to after that. Of course, aspirations this year are a lot higher. They're 2-0 for the first time in quite some time, and they look to go 3-0 this weekend, and I give them a decent chance.
The Cyclones, last year we live streamed every game, and it was agonizing, not because they weren't any good. It was because they were in every game.
That's true.
They should have beaten North Little Rock. Alty Tenpenny wasn't playing, but they should have beaten North Little Rock. They had the lead with less than a minute left, and this quarterback was unbelievable. He was just he was untackleable.
Yeah.
They had him wrapped up 2 or 3 times, could not bring him to the ground. He just flings it as far as he can. Guy catches it inside the 10. They punch it in and win the game. Little Rock Central, more of the same. Van Buren, just over and over, the Cyclones were snake bitten last year, and it's about time that things work out for them. Last weekend, they got a 28-16 win over Siloam Springs. They won the first game, I think it was 20-12 over Morrilton. So the Cyclones look to go 3-0, going to Alma. Really nice facility there in Alma.
Really nice.
Alma, they go all out in all their facilities, but the Cyclones looking to go 3-0, and we were just trying to figure out when the last time the Cyclones were 3-0. So it's been a long time.
In the last couple of years for sure. And of course, I think in 2009 they had a really good year when they had the great defense. So it's been a while. It's overdue. We can say that for sure.
Definitely is for Coach Jeff Holt and those guys. It's definitely an overdue thing. And the cool thing about it is that you've got a lot of guys who've stuck through a lot of trouble.
That's true.
You got Mitch Mullen and Cody Jones and Jalen Curtis and these guys who stuck through a lot of trouble. I didn't even realize this, but I went to the Dardanelle game last week, and Nick Hendricks, who played a lot at running back for the Russellville Cyclones last year, has transferred to Dardanelle.
Okay.
So, they're going through all these different changes, and, I don't know what brought about that change, but the Cyclones have kind of overcome it, and now to be 2-0, have a chance to go to 3-0. It's a good thing.
It's really exciting, and then you look next week, and I hope the players don't look ahead, but, of course, it's Conway. And you really don't have to say anything else besides it's Conway. They've sort of physically punished Russellville over the last couple of years or so. I know Russellville would really like to get that one. So trying to get some momentum going against Alma heading into that game. And one thing I think Coach Holt's done a good job of is, have you ever seen a 2-quarterback system work so smoothly when the quarterbacks have similar skill sets? They both throw the ball pretty well. It doesn't seem to be a real conflict. I don't really notice Cody Jones or Mitch Mullen, their rhythm to be broken. So I think that's really good for the Cyclones as well.
Yeah, and it's not one of those things where, when you get inside the 20, this quarterback's playing, or when, every other drive they rotate, and they're both good enough. Coach Holt has enough faith in both of them that he's just playing both of them regardless of the situation, and it's working out pretty well. It's just one of those things where he can always send in a fresh quarterback with a new signal or a new play call or whatever it is, and he can rotate those guys. And it's cool that he's got enough faith in both Cody Jones and Mitch Mullen to do that. So hopefully, again, the Cyclones can go to 3-0 and beat the Alma Airedales. Whatever an Airedale is. It's a British dog. Do you know that?
Some shaggy dog.
Hopefully they can beat Alma and go to 3-0. Our River Valley Leader featured game of the week. There's actually 2 of them this week. I'll be taking photos at Pottsville as Pottsville takes on Clinton, and also at Dardanelle as Dardanelle takes on the Clarksville Panthers. Matt Ketchum is going to be at Dardanelle taking that game, and Landon Crouch is going to be at Pottsville taking Clinton. But Dardanelle looks to go 3-0. They beat Danville 33-0. They beat Mayflower 47-13 last week. Clarksville 0-2, falling to Charleston and then to Ozark. Now they've got another rival back to back to back. They're taking on the Dardanelle Sand Lizards at Keenan Field here in Dardanelle. That one's going to be a slobber knocker.
Want to see how Clarksville responds. We talked about the Arkansas Razorbacks and what we want to see from them as far as responding. I want to see Clarksville. It's a team that's 0-2, had a couple of tough losses. How will they respond against a very salty, physical Dardanelle team? I think that'll be fun to watch.
It will be fun to watch. And we've given Players of the Week on the Sports Blitz page. The first week, it was Ty Ennis from the Atkins
Right.
had 5 touchdown passes in week 1, and it was raining sideways. It was a tough night, and he had 5 touchdown passes, so that was an incredible performance. And then the second week, it was Michael Perry against Fountain Lake. Michael Perry, the quarterback from Pottsville, the junior, 4 rushing touchdowns. This week, our player to watch, Evan Carter, the Dardanelle quarterback, who for several years now has been a contributor to the Dardanelle Sand Lizards program. And also, if you're watching that game, watch number 42 of Clarksville, Colton Smith, a senior who has been a contributor since his sophomore season. He'll play wide receiver. He'll be a tough matchup for Dardanelle, as well as a defensive back. He'll be on one of Dardanelle's best players on the receiving side as a defensive back. So that's going to be, like you said, it's going to be a classic matchup. Dardanelle wants to hit you in the mouth. Clarksville has had enough of 0-2. Charleston is very good. Ozark is very good. Dardanelle, in another rivalry game, very good. But Clarksville, you can sense, and I know a lot of those players, they don't want to go 0-3. So they're going to come out and give everything they've got, and then they're going to put it on the line in this game against Dardanelle.
Yeah, a lot of pride on the line for Clarksville. And I was thinking about Michael Perry. You mentioned him. Here's a guy who played for Pottsville as a 9th grader.
Yeah.
Seems like he's been there forever.
It does.
And
he's still got this year and next.
And next year, yeah. I mean, he's a tremendous player for them. Was a huge key for them in their road win against Fountain Lake. And, again, we think of this guy as being a senior. He's got the rest of this year and another year.
Definitely. Well, Pottsville is going to take on Clinton. Last year it was an outstanding performance for Pottsville against Clinton. I was actually at that game, and I didn't get to go to very many Pottsville games. But they're 34-20 winners over Fountain Lake. They're now 2-0, and they get to take on Clinton at home. Be our first chance for those local fans who don't necessarily get to go on the road and follow these teams to check out the Apaches this week. So get out there at 7 o'clock and watch the Pottsville Apaches versus Clinton. Also, Dover is traveling to Lincoln. They're going to take on Lincoln. Dover fell 20-14 to Arkansas Baptist in a canceled game. It was a rain-shortened game. Atkins is taking on Two Rivers. They're going to travel there, take on the Gators. Lamar is hosting Western Yell County, and Hector is traveling to Hartford. Danville is traveling to Bigelow. It's a full slate of games, Weldon, and there are fans from I guess, Danville to Dover and from Clarksville to Morrilton, and there's plenty of football that these folks can watch this weekend.
Yeah, lots of football, and a few fans who they had their games canceled, so they'll get a chance to go back out there, watch some football for the first time in a couple weeks. So the juice in the River Valley market is certainly here. Definitely.
We're going to go to break. When we come back, we've got Arkansas Razorback talk. We're going to hear from Paul Petrino. We're also going to hear from Nick Saban. You wouldn't expect to hear from Nick Saban on this show, but we're going to hear from Nick Saban what he thinks of the Razorbacks right after this break.
RiverValleyLeader.com is the #1 local source for instant news in the River Valley, offering HD video and live streaming along with top-notch coverage of all the news and events around the area. The River Valley Leader is the only place to go for all the information you need. Check out the newest local business featured on the site, as well as police news and coverage from important meetings, along with the personal stories, all at one convenient click. Check out RiverValleyLeader.com.
Sports Scene of Arkansas offers a wide variety of sporting goods and apparel to meet any athlete's needs. Coaches love the top-of-the-line equipment that gives their players an edge, and parents and fans can't get enough of the high-quality screen printing that allows them to sport their favorite team's logo on jerseys, bags, and hats. Your one-stop shop for embroidery, banners, and much, much more. Visit your local team sports specialists. Sports Scene at 316 West Main in Russellville.
Today, there are more than 20 brands of cars being sold in America. So to be noticed, Ford and Cogswell Motors have to go further than anyone thought we could. How does Ford stand out above the crowd? Not just with plug-in vehicles like the new 2013 Ford Fusion Energy that gets a projected 100 miles per gallon equivalent, but also with a line of gas vehicles equipped with the innovative EcoBoost engines combining power and efficiency, plus a full measure of technologically advanced features. We invite you to stop into Cogswell Motors today. We go further than anyone thought we could, so that you can go further too.
Live from the River Valley Leader studio, here are your hosts, Mark Freeman and Weldon Braxton.
Got sound from Nick Saban and Paul Petrino coming right up here in just a moment. But let's close down the local sports segment of the Sports Blitz here. Mark Freeman, Weldon Braxton in studio. Arkansas Tech, they definitely have a full week that's going on right now as far as sports go. The Wonder Boys and Golden Suns taking the GAC by storm. They won the GAC All Sports Championship this year, and they look to do this last year. They look to do the same thing this year. One team that was a champion in their conference in the first season was the volleyball team, Coach Christy Byer, and you can watch a video interview we have with Coach Byer on RiverValleyLeader.com.
Oh.
They went undefeated last year through the entire GAC, and this year they've scheduled themselves a tough non-conference slate. Right now they're 7-3. They've tested themselves with all kinds of competition from around the country, and now they're 1-0 in GAC play as they've taken down Arkansas Monticello 3-1 in the GAC opener. Congratulations to Carly Florian, who was named the GAC Offensive Player of the Week for her performance this past week in the second week of the 2012 season. The 6'2 senior from Wilmington, Illinois, was announced by the GAC as the volleyball player of the week. Well, it's really cool that Arkansas Tech and the Golden Suns, they do what a lot of teams don't do. You know, you schedule cupcakes early in the season, and what happens? You're just not prepared when the big time comes. But Arkansas Tech, and especially in volleyball, Coach Byer has understood. You challenge yourself early, and then it seems like your conference may not be as difficult as some of those early games.
Yeah, and sometimes the cupcakes trip you up.
Yeah,
but,
Louisiana Monroe.
Yeah,
thanks.
Congratulations to Arkansas Tech. I mean, off to a 7-3 start. You may be like, but as you said, Mark, you go out, you schedule yourself a difficult schedule, and that's what you do when you have high expectations and high aspirations. I think as a coach, when you schedule opponents for your team, you have to understand, what do you have? Like, if I have a young team and I'm trying to build confidence, I may load up some cupcakes because I need to say, hey, we need to get some wind and some confidence. We're not going to be very good. But that's not the case with this team.
No.
They expect to be up there. They expect to compete, and they're going to test themselves, and I admire that. So
yeah, well, and Coach Byer understands that it's not about winning a bunch of games, a bunch of matches in this case against terrible teams, and then not being ready for the conference. It's to her, it's let's just see what we've got. Let's see where we are, and then we know we're going to be right in the thick of the conference championship race. So they're just going to make sure that they're prepared, and they, it worked out pretty well for them in the first match of the season, 3-1 winners over Arkansas Monticello. Congratulations again. You can watch all these games, follow them live. The stats on athletics.atu.edu. They'll do a good job of keeping you up to date with your Wonder Boys and Golden Suns. Also, want to let you know that Arkansas Tech football will be hosting Henderson State for Family Day Saturday at Thone Stadium at Burkle Field. You can get out and watch the Wonder Boys take on Henderson State and the Reddies. The game will be kicking off at 6 p.m. And again, it's Family Day, so all those families of the players and students will be in town. It'll be a big crowd, and it'll be a fun atmosphere there for Arkansas Tech students and fans. So we would encourage you to get out and watch the Arkansas Tech Wonder Boys and pay attention to what's going on with them early on in the season. It's been a tough one for them too. Maddie and I were both out there last week on the Thursday game, what happens? Lightning out of nowhere. We didn't even. I looked at my phone and there wasn't a chance of rain or anything. Well, the game's delayed 2.5 hours because of lightning and rain, and it's kind of one of those random things. So it's been tough on the Wonder Boys to start this season, although they've had 3 games at home. It's been a little different. One was a Thursday night game that got rain, and then this week is Family Day. So hopefully the Wonder Boys can get things going and get it on the right track.
Yeah, we'll see what they do. Family Day coming up, so kids, those of you who have dorm rooms, hide all the things you don't want mom and dad to find. Make sure your room is clean. Make it look like you're the perfect model college student, and then take them to the game and have a great day. That's what you do.
Is that how you do it? I've never lived on campus, so I wouldn't know. We asked today via the Sports Blitz Facebook page, which side of the ball has the best chance to improve for Arkansas this week against Alabama? We've got several answers, and we were very interested to see what you have to say about this on our Facebook page. Matt Ketchum said, regardless of who starts at quarterback, I think the offense will be improved. I think that can be relative because Alabama's defense is... But he said with so many key players not playing and other players a little banged up, the defense could possibly be a little worse than the first 2 games if possible. This is where I bang my head on this microphone because if the defense is any worse, Oh man, Arkansas's in trouble. I understand where he's at there with that question or with that answer.
Yeah.
But hopefully that the offense is better. Hopefully the defense is better. Hopefully they both make such a marked improvement that we can't tell which one was better throughout the week. We'll see. We'll see how that turns out on Saturday. Ryan Martin said, I still haven't heard final word on Tyler. Let me break in here. I think the final word right now is that they're going to wait on him. We'll hear from Paul Petrino here in just a moment. He's day-to-day. If he passes all those concussion tests, I think it's a couple days that you have to be clear of the concussion symptoms before they'll allow you to play or even practice. But he said, I still haven't heard final word on Tyler, but I would think that the offense will be the most improved. I can only say the O because I think our defense is what they showed us last Saturday. That is a lot of athletes playing defensive positions they really shouldn't be playing and or athletes that are not SEC defense ready.
I think athletes is generous right there. Just
Zach Vaught said, it's not going to look like they improved anything when they go against the Alabama offensive and defensive lines. It may get ugly. And Jeff George said defense can't get any worse, so anything would be an improvement. I think, the atmosphere around Arkansas fans has changed more dramatically in a 1 week time period than I've ever seen in my Razorback fandom. And I've been here since 1994. My first year in Arkansas was 1994 when they won the national championship in basketball and hadn't done anything since. But in 1 week, Arkansas went from we can be here to, well, we're lucky if we're going to be here.
It really is something, Mark. And I was asking you before the show if you had heard anything about tickets and, what were ticket prices before that disaster against ULM and what were they now? I think you said a $500 ticket now going for $100.
Well, I know that there were people who would spend up to $3,000 on tickets. Just an insane amount of money on sideline tickets. And I was guesstimating that a friend of mine who was selling box seats that are worth, normally I think those tickets are worth like $120 a piece, and she's asking $100 for them a piece. So you're losing some money here when a couple weeks ago this was the hottest ticket there was. And I nearly threw up last night when I was watching ESPN and they talked about the marquee game of the week. And it was like Notre Dame, Michigan State.
Yeah.
And I was thinking all summer long, since Arkansas beat Kansas State, all we've thought about was, man, that Alabama game on September 15th, that's going to be incredible. Can't wait for that game. And in one moment, when that quarterback crossed the goal line for ULM, all that went down the drain, all the expectation. Arkansas is leading Sports Center, and it's in a negative way. And the game goes from being this to just
Well, think about it. I mean, look at College Game Day. I heard a business analyst come on and say that College Game Day is worth about $5 million with overall revenue and everything. That's down the toilet. Now Game Day is going with Tennessee, Florida. Are you kidding me? I bet ESPN was like, oh, my goodness. We could have had a top 10 matchup, but now we're going to Florida and Tennessee. Utter disappointment.
Kirk Herbstreit said it. He said, come on, Arkansas, we were coming. He said game day was coming to Fayetteville. It would have been the second time. It would have been a crazy atmosphere. And then instead of that, we're talking about, can Arkansas even compete? I think that's sad.
That is.
I think it's a sad state of affairs that Arkansas is in that shape. And, we were talking, the question we had off the air before the show was, what would we have thought had Arkansas had come back and won the game? If Arkansas had held on and won the game, if it had been close, I can tell you, I would have thought Arkansas was just looking forward, looking ahead to Alabama. Things would be all right. They were vanilla on purpose, and they got away with it barely. But now that Arkansas lost, all that thought is, well, we're just not very good.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, I asked you that question, and I want to ask you another one. Would you be sick to your stomach, let's say after Saturday's game, Arkansas really shows you what they are, they get beat by 4 touchdowns, is it like, oh my goodness, we're not as good, we're 2-1, we lost to Alabama and they're good, or are you sick to your stomach right now to that same degree?
Well, obviously I'd be happier if our only loss was to Alabama and we didn't lose to Louisiana Monroe. I would have rather been exposed by a team who was better than Arkansas than to be exposed in the way that Arkansas was by Louisiana Monroe. So to answer your question, I was upset last year when Arkansas lost to Alabama, but I expected it. This year I expected Arkansas to lose. I picked them to lose, but if they came out and got killed by Alabama but they were 2-0, I would just say, all right, well, just do the same thing you did last year, bounce back. You can go on to LSU, and last year it was a 1-3 matchup.
Yeah.
Arkansas was number 3 in the country when they played LSU because they'd won all of those other games.
Yeah.
And, you could do that again. But in this case, Arkansas would be losing 2 games in a row. You had been exposed one week, beat down the next week. What do you have left? How do you bounce back? How do you respond and recover from 2 losses like that? So, obviously the answer to me is that I would have rather them only lost the 1 game to Alabama than 2, because the psyche of the team could be completely shattered if it's not already.
And I think you could be onto something. Now, I've always asked people this question, and I've kind of been on both sides of it. Would you rather lose to an inferior opponent and then win the rest of your game and saying, okay, well, that was just a fluke game, we beat a lot better teams the rest of the way? Or would you rather get beat by a good team, win all your other games? And because I kind of like go back to Ole Miss and Florida. I mean, Florida knew they were better than Ole Miss when they lost to them, but it was like, okay, that was a fluke, wash that game away. Or would Florida have rather have lost to a good team like an Alabama? That's always sort of an iffy question. But Mark, I want to attack our poll question. I've been holding back my take on it. I want to give mine. Offense or defense, which has a chance to be better? I have got to go with our offense, and here's why. I told you after the Jacksonville State game, there's mental mistakes, and then there's just not having talent. And no talent early in the season stays no talent the rest of the year. Mental mistakes, they're annoying, they're tedious to deal with, but you can overcome them. I still believe, even though Arkansas's offensive line has been extremely disappointing, they can't be that much worse than what we thought they were going to be. My point is, Mark, we still have the horses physically in the stable on offense. They just got to sharpen up and get things together from an execution standpoint. I'm looking at defense, and I'm not seeing the horses in the stable. In fact, we got some ponies that may be headed to the glue factory. I mean, that's the kind of talent we have defensively, and you don't clean that up with sharp execution and doing the different things getting better.
He said maybe going to the glue factory.
Yeah, I mean, we ain't quite got what we need defensively, talent-wise, to get better. Now, I still think physically, Mark, and this is what it comes down to for me, Arkansas was built, and whether this plan has actually come true or not, Arkansas was built to play this game in LSU. The only reason you moved Tank Wright to linebacker is for this game. This is the game they had in mind. They said, look, Alabama, LSU beat the dog out of us physically, pounding us right up the gut. We're going to put some size at linebacker. We're going to get bigger up front. We're building to hold up in this game. Now, it hasn't looked the way we thought it was going to look, and it may not look the way we planned for it to look. But I'm just interested because I know this staff they changed the defensive personnel for this game. So we'll see if they can finally put their money where their mouth is.
Let's play what Nick Saban said. Weldon made a good point about how Arkansas had retooled and prepared for LSU and Alabama. They set the defense up to be a defense that would stand up against the run. It would stand up against the punishment. And in doing that, you play these 2 spread teams in the first 2 games of the season. You're just not built for it. So that tells me a couple different things. One, spread teams are going to beat Arkansas because if Jacksonville State and Louisiana Monroe can have that much success against Arkansas, that's trouble. And then anybody who can just spread it and throw will have success. But Arkansas better play better on defense against Alabama. Gotcha. Nick Saban spoke about about Arkansas and what he expects from the Razorbacks. And notice Weldon brought to my attention that he doesn't mention Arkansas losing. So he's telling his players, just like he did the media last week about who they're playing? Western Kentucky. He's got a lot of respect, at least in the way he's talking about Arkansas.
Let's see what Nick says.
This is a big game. You have these games that you point to. A lot of players back from a very good team a year ago. Their quarterback does a tremendous job for them, probably one of the best quarterbacks in the country. They lost some skilled players, but they have some good skilled players, and they can run the ball. So this is a very, very good offensive team. I personally think, watching them in the spring, they've got better defensive players than what they've had in the past. So this is going to be a huge test for us, and something that we got to do a great job of getting our players ready for.
That's Nick Saban, and he is a liar. I'll just say it. He is blowing smoke up our rear.
Oh, yeah.
Talking about how Arkansas's got better players on defense. Forgive me, fans, for talking so negatively about the Razorback defense, but I don't have any faith in them whatsoever. So let's hear what Paul Petrino said. He met with the media yesterday and was asked a lot of questions, among them, how long does Arkansas wait on Tyler Wilson? In my opinion, if he's ready Saturday morning, he hadn't practiced all week, he's Tyler Wilson. He's starting. Sorry, Brandon Allen. Sorry, Brandon Mitchell. Also, Brandon Mitchell playing quarterback this week. He's going to quarterback meetings throughout, but he's practicing at quarterback. How's that going to affect the team? Let's listen to Paul Petrino and see what he has to say about the Razorbacks coming up against Alabama this week.
I'll go till game time. It's day-to-day right now, and I'm hopeful and wishful that he'll be ready to go, but we're also going to prepare the other two to get ready to play at the same time. They had pretty good days. I thought they both did some good things. Obviously, they both had a couple things they can do better, so we'll get in and study the tape. They'll work hard preparing, and they'll both be ready to play. A little bit. He missed a couple throws that maybe he wouldn't, but the good thing is he's been in the meetings every day, so he knows it all mentally. He's still going through individual all the time and throwing and working his footwork, so just a matter of getting a couple more reps, and he'll be fine. Anytime, you have mobility, that helps you, lets you do a few more things, and then, Brandon Allen actually has pretty good mobility too, so with the two of them, they got to run around and make some plays and make things happen with their feet too.
When you look at the tape from the Monroe game in the second half, what was going on that prevented you from getting the run game going like you wanted to do and moving the chains in the second half?
Well, it was really the fourth quarter. We had the ball once in the third quarter and we scored a touchdown. That's the only time we had it. The fourth quarter was a couple third downs, to be honest with you. We had 1 3rd and 2. We ran pitch 9 crack, and the guy that's pulling doesn't cut like he's supposed to. If he does, it's like Auburn last year. It's run down the sideline, 70-yard touchdown. We had a 3rd and 5, throw a triple slant, the ball hits the guy right in the stomach, and he drops it. We had another 3rd down where we didn't execute very well. But they were packing so many guys up against the line. Mentally, in your mind, you don't look at that and say you're going to run the ball, very often. Now, a couple years ago, we forced the run against them over and over and over, and going into the fourth quarter, we had 7 points. We had 21 points at halftime, 28 first one drive into the third quarter. So that game, when they decided to stop running it and just throwing it, is when they start scoring all their points. That's kind of what I use, based on a lot of it on my game plan.
That's Paul Petrino. And Weldon, as you were listening, you said, I just got to put him on the couch. I got to analyze what he's saying, what was being said beyond the words that were coming out of his mouth.
That's what you do when you put somebody on the couch, Mark. You hear what they say, but then you put it in context with the situation, and then you determine what he's really saying. And when I listened to that clip, Mark, I heard a man defending himself. I heard a man who was very aware that he was blasted on radio, television, saying how he was incompetent. I'm listening to a man in Paul Petrino who heard all of that. He played a little bit of the blame game. I heard him talk about drop passes. I heard him even take a shot at the defense, saying we only got the ball one time in the third quarter and we actually scored. I heard him talking about how a few years ago they tried to run the ball against this defense and only had 7 points going into the second half, as to say, hey, that's why I threw the ball 13 straight times, because I know you all are giving me a lot of trouble for that. He blamed third down execution. He blamed a lot of people, Mark. And I'm just saying, Mark, he sounds to me like a guy who's listening to the criticism. He's heard the criticism, and he says, let me take a subtle shot at some people and defend myself.
Yeah, he really did. And a lot of his points, there are points to them.
They were true.
There are things that you can take from it and say, yeah, Paul Petrino is right. There were some drop passes. If it's not for Chris Gregg, and I love Chris Gregg, he's going to be an NFL tight end, but if it hadn't been for him dropping that last pass that came to him, hit him right in the shoulder.
Yeah.
If it hadn't hit him in the shoulder, bounced up, and them intercepted it, Arkansas has a chance to kick a field goal, Russellville's own Zach Hawker, to win the game. You don't even have to mess with this whole overtime.
Yeah.
In which Zach Hocker kicked the field goal, they score a touchdown and win the game. So there are little plays here and there, as there always are, that can affect the impact and the outcome of the game. To me, Paul Petrino, he had the right to say some of that stuff. I would have rather him kept it in-house.
Yeah.
He had this smug look on his face, too, in the interview. And I'm not against Paul Petrino one way or the other. But I'm one of those that was watching the game saying, why in the world do you have a freshman quarterback throwing it every single down?
Yeah.
I understand, and it's not like he was throwing little drags across the simple routes. He's throwing it outside the numbers,
like full
throwing
reads.
it deep. Exactly. Instead of just crossing routes, dump it off to Greg or dump it off to one of the smaller receivers. I'm not one to question a coach because I've never been one, so I'll just leave it at that. But that's what I was thinking. We'll come back from break, and we've got plenty more to talk about on the Sports Blitz. We're glad you've joined us today at RiverValleyLeader.com.
Today, there are more than 20 brands of cars being sold in America. So to be noticed, Ford and Cogswell Motors have to go further than anyone thought we could. How does Ford stand out above the crowd? Not just with plug-in vehicles like the new 2013 Ford Fusion Energy that gets a projected 100 miles per gallon equivalent, but also with a line of gas vehicles equipped with the innovative EcoBoost engines combining power and efficiency, plus a full measure of technologically advanced features. We invite you to stop into Cogswell Motors today. We go further than anyone thought we could, so that you can go further too.
It doesn't matter what you're looking for, chances are Good Deal Charlie Discount Furniture has it. From living room, bedroom, and dining furniture to one-of-a-kind pieces, Good Deal Charlie has everything. The staff is pleasant and always friendly, so you'll feel no pressure to buy. With new and used furniture for your home or office, you can find everything you need at the best possible prices at 2209 East Main Street in Russellville. Good Deal Charlie.
RiverValleyLeader.com is the #1 local source for instant news in the River Valley, offering HD video and live streaming along with top-notch coverage of all the news and events around the area. The River Valley Leader is the only place to go for all the information you need. Check out the newest local business featured on the site, as well as police news and coverage from important meetings, along with the personal stories, all at one convenient click. Check out RiverValleyLeader.com.
Live from the River Valley Leader studio, here are your hosts, Mark Freeman and Weldon Braxton.
Lots of Arkansas Razorbacks analysis on the Sports Blitz today. Mark Freeman, Weldon Braxton, glad to have you along as we try to break down. We put him on the couch. We put Paul Petrino on the psychiatrist's couch, and we tried to break down the mental aspect of the Razorbacks' loss to Louisiana Monroe, how it's going to affect this weekend against Alabama. But let's move on from the Hogs for just a little bit, Weldon. It's time to hit the wire and look at all the other stuff, because contrary to popular belief, there is more than just the Arkansas Razorbacks going on. There's a lot going on in the world of sports right now, and it's time for you to hit it up with the wire.
Mark, it's time to update everybody on the latest drama that is known as the Saints bounty case, of course, in the NFL. Most recently, most people are aware that the Jonathan Vilman, the 4 players, their appeal was successful and their suspensions were lifted, but Roger Goodell has the right to hand down future suspensions. The arbitrator basically said, Goodell, if you want to suspend these players again, you're going to have to produce more evidence. You're going to have to be more diligent in producing this evidence, Mark. And this is all I've been asking for. You know, we've talked this bounty thing to death. We've talked about, how right or wrong it is and all of those different things. But for me, it really boiled down to, where's the evidence? If they're guilty, they're guilty. I'm a football guy. I'll defend football guys till the end. But if you're guilty no matter what it is. And all I wanted to see from Roger Goodell was, where was this evidence? And he had a hard time producing it. He says he had a lot. There were some things that were disclosed within the confines of the hearing, but not publicly. But in the end, it wasn't sufficient. And I think that's where the arbitrator came in and said, if you're going to go through with these suspensions, we got to see a little bit more. We got to see some concrete evidence.
I was a little shocked to see that these guys were made eligible. To this point, Roger Goodell hasn't had anybody question his authority.
That's
true. And when. It's been basically he's ruled with an iron fist, and so far he's been able to do it.
Yeah.
And the fact that he made these suspensions and he made these things come down on these players, to me, I just thought it just goes without saying that he's got this proof and that they know about it.
You would think so,
wouldn't
you?
You would think that he has to have some sort of proof. You wouldn't just do this for fun, and you haven't heard anything from Sean Payton in a little while. You don't hear much from Joe Vitt and these guys, but Jonathan Vilma has just continuously fought for his innocence, and now these players apparently are going to end up being eligible to play. Will Smith played in Game 1, right?
Yeah,
Jonathan Vilma's not healthy, so he couldn't play. But
yeah, and the thing with Vilma was people said, well, he didn't play, so really what's the big deal? There's this thing called game checks and this little thing called money, and when you're suspended, you don't get paid. But now he's just on the PUP, physically unable to perform list, so he still can get paid. So if everybody's wondering what's the difference, Jonathan Vilma will tell you there is a huge difference.
Millions of dollars of difference, yes.
But Mark, you brought up a point about Roger Goodell sort of being the iron fist judge, jury, and executioner, and we haven't really seen anything like this. We really haven't seen anybody fight Goodell like this on anything.
That's true.
We've seen appeals, and once the appeal goes dry, it's kind of the end of it. Jonathan Vilma fought. He fought this whole entire time. We've been talking about this case for months, and I don't know if you saw the comments that he and his lawyer came out with, but not only are they sort of holding neutral ground, they're going on the offensive. Vilma and his people come out and say, look, we'll meet with you, Commissioner. We'll talk about this suspension you may hand down for a second time. I hope it's not as frivolous as the last suspension you held down, really just using aggressive and disrespectful language to the commissioner. And I don't have a problem with it because, I'm not the biggest fan of Roger Goodell, but I just think it's funny how Jonathan Vilma, he's arrogant. He knows he's got a little bit of leverage on his side. He's trying to talk a little noise to the commissioner now. He's got his big boy pants on, as they would say.
Until Goodell can bring about some evidence, literally bring it to the table and say, this is what we got, then Jonathan Vilma's going to continue to talk that noise.
Yeah.
And if he does bring that, I can see Roger Goodell sitting in his office right now saying, I got this. Mm-hmm. I got all this evidence right here. And I'm just going to let him say what he's going to say, and then I'm going to show him. I'll go meet with him.
And let's say for a second that it's true he doesn't have the evidence. What does this mean? What does this tell you about Goodell? It makes me start to wonder, okay, are you handing down suspensions without evidence or all these other disciplinary actions? I know most of them are legit, but are you handing down other punishments that aren't quite valid? I mean, what's going on? Why would you do this in this particular case? It opens up Pandora's box to really what's going on with this commissioner. We know he rubs people the wrong way, and a lot of these people need discipline. If you get DWIs and domestic abuse, all this other stuff, you need to be dealt with. I'm not arguing that, but I'm just wondering, do you not quite have all this evidence? Do you not quite have legitimate reasons for some of these suspensions? It opens up a can of worms.
All right, next up in the wire.
In the wire, something that actually just came down this morning. It's been reported that Notre Dame will move to the ACC in all sports except for football. Of course, Mark, we know they've competed in the Big East in basketball and other sports. Still no football. It is news. I will give it that. But there's no football, so really where is the news? Because think about it.
The Big East was dying.
The Big East
in
was
basketball.
dying. Yeah, it's dying. I mean, they still have some good teams, Louisville, UConn, but Syracuse has gone to the ACC. Pitt's gone to the ACC. West Virginia left for the Big 12. Really, this was about the basketball profile of Notre Dame. I mean, Notre Dame's not an elite program, but they're a good basketball program, and they're basically just going to greener pastures. Now, for football, no, I don't believe this is going to lead to them joining the ACC. I know some people think, well, it's just a matter of time now. Maybe, but I'm not sure. I do think it's interesting, though, that part of this deal required that Notre Dame play 5 games against the ACC in football. So it's an interesting shakeout. I'm not sure yet, though, if it means the big changes in Notre Dame football finally joining a conference. I'm not ready to go there yet.
As long as there's the money that there's available to Notre Dame to stay independent in football, they're going to.
Yeah, I agree. I just can't see it. I mean, you're talking about giving up your NBC deal, and geographically, I know some people out there may wonder, well, what about the Big Ten? Wouldn't that make more sense? Big Ten said no. We like Notre Dame basketball. We like Notre Dame swimming, but it ain't Notre Dame football. And you can't join our conference in all sports except for football. Either you bring the whole package or we don't want you. So,
and I can't really blame them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry. I like Mike Bray. He's done a great job with Notre Dame basketball. I know they've got a good swim team and some other sports, but we know where the cash cow is. And I don't blame the Big Ten for that at all.
All right, next up.
We got football. NFL action. Tomorrow night, the Chicago Bears take on the Green Bay Packers. And first of all, I think it's cool or it's kind of strange the NFL is doing Thursday night games earlier this year. Usually it'd be like after the midway point, they'll start trickling in some Thursday night games. But they're starting right off the bat. Week 2 Thursday night games and a huge matchup in the NFC North. The Bears, they're feeling confident. They've got a balanced, explosive offense. The defensive pass rush looks great against the Packers team that, I got to say, Mark, psychologically, I wonder about them. Jared Bush, the corner that I criticized the other day, he comes out and says, well, the 49ers didn't really beat us. We beat ourselves. I'm thinking back, isn't that what you said against the Giants last year? The Giants didn't really beat us in the playoffs last year. We beat ourselves. I'm looking at the Packers, and I'm not pressing any panic buttons, but I'm just saying Aaron Rodgers wasn't quite as sharp as he normally is in that 49ers game. Receivers weren't quite as open. You know, in the NFL, no matter how good you are, you can't win doing the same thing. And I think the Packers are at a point to where spreading people out, hitting Jennings and Nelson and Finley, all these guys, people are starting to catch on. I want to see if the Packers can evolve.
It's a tough turnaround for the Green Bay Packers. You lose
is.
at home to the San Francisco 49ers, and then you have to turn around and play, 5 days later?
Yeah. Thursday night.
4 days later.
Yeah,
4 days later against the Bears. I think it's kind of going to be helped by the fact that Jay Cutler.
Yes.
I've never been a big fan of Jay Cutler. I've got him on a couple of my fantasy teams, but the person Jay Cutler, I remember writing a story about him when I was in college about how he was a big crybaby because he was, get me out of Denver, trade me, I want out of here. He wishes the Green Bay Packers defense good luck. He says, you guys want to press up on our receivers on the corner? Good luck.
Yeah.
We'll see how that works out for you. Newsflash. There's a guy named Clay Matthews who I don't know that I'd talk a whole lot of trash to his team because he was coming for your soul anyway. He was coming to kill you, and now he's got a little bit more incentive to, you know what, let's plant this dude, and your offensive line ain't good enough to protect you.
You are right, Mark, but I got to ask a question. Where's Clay Matthews been? I mean, I see more Head and Shoulders commercials than I see him getting sacks nowadays. I mean, where's 2010 Clay Matthews? I want to see him. Like Jay Cutler, he is the most smug, the most arrogant quarterback in the NFL. It's not even close. I mean, Jay Cutler, he's feeling good right now.
Where's Clay Matthews? He's at the top of the sacks list. He had 2.5 sacks last week.
Did he? Well, it's
he's been all right.
It's about time he showed back up because he's been non-existent. That defense, that's who also.
No, the defensive backs aren't very good. They're old. They're hurt.
Yeah.
You know, they've just not been healthy. And if you're going to have an excuse, it needs to be that we're not healthy, and it doesn't need to be, oh, well, they didn't beat us, we beat ourselves. That's a stupid excuse.
I mean, leaving people wide open. Randy Moss, look, I'm glad he scored a touchdown. Congratulations. That was a busted coverage. Randy Moss didn't beat anybody to get open. Packers busted a coverage. I'm looking at the Green Bay Packers right now I'm hearing more bark than I'm seeing bite. I'm seeing this team saying, oh, we're all right. We're like we are in 2010. And I'm not seeing it. Jay Cutler's saying, look, I got my deep ball. I got my big receivers. Come get me. That's going to be fun tomorrow night.
It definitely is. We'll talk more about that, and we'll tie up a nice little bow on the Sports Blitz today with the last segment here in just a minute.
RiverValleyLeader.com is the #1 local source for instant news in the River Valley, offering HD video and live streaming along with top-notch coverage of all the news and events around the area. The River Valley Leader is the only place to go for all the information you need. Check out the newest local business featured on the site, as well as police news and coverage from important meetings, along with the personal stories, all at one convenient click. Check out RiverValleyLeader.com.
Today, there are more than 20 brands of cars being sold in America. So to be noticed, Ford and Cogswell Motors have to go further than anyone thought we could. How does Ford stand out above the crowd? Not just with plug-in vehicles like the new 2013 Ford Fusion Energy that gets a projected 100 miles per gallon equivalent, but also with a line of gas vehicles equipped with the innovative EcoBoost engines combining power and efficiency, plus a full measure of technologically advanced features. We invite you to stop into Cogswell Motors today. We go further than anyone thought we could, so that you can go further too.
Sports Scene of Arkansas offers a wide variety of sporting goods and apparel to meet any athlete's needs. Coaches love the top-of-the-line equipment that gives their players an edge, and parents and fans can't get enough of the high-quality screen printing that allows them to sport their favorite team's logo on jerseys, bags, and hats. Your one-stop shop for embroidery, banners, and much, much more. Visit your local team sports specialists. Sports Scene at 316 West Main in Russellville. Live from the River Valley Leader studio, here are your hosts, Mark Freeman and Weldon Braxton.
Let's take one more look here on the Sports Blitz at the local sports calendar and what's going to be taking place on Friday night. Thank you to AR Sports Magazine. You can pick it up at fine establishments around the River Valley, literally all over the place. You can find today's AR Sports Magazine. Thank you to them for becoming our schedule sponsor. Russellville's taking on Alma on the road. And again, Friday we'll go through these games in a little more detail and talk about them again. But we just want to run through them a couple times so that you're very well aware of who your team's playing, where and when they're going to be taking the field. Dardanelle's hosting Clarksville. Dover's traveling to Lincoln. Atkins is at Two Rivers. Lamar is hosting Western Yale County. Pottsville's hosting Clinton. Hector is at Hartford. Danville is at Bigelow. So we'll break those games down on Friday. But Weldon, after those games take place on Friday night, Saturday we've got the Razorbacks against Alabama. 3 days from that game, and, you know, we talked about it all show long. This game would have been, we would have been on cloud nine, just
What cloud
excited.
are we on now?
We're on a cloud. I don't know that we're on. I don't even know if it has a number. But the Razorbacks say what? We're in fog. We thought it was a cloud, but it's just fog.
Feels like
a lot of people are low on the Razorbacks. This is when you buy. Yeah. This is when a lot of people buy. You buy low and sell high. Arkansas, not a lot of people are giving them a chance right now. Nobody on this table is giving Arkansas a win. So let's just look at it as objectively as we can. I know a lot of fans' feelings are hurt. My feelings are hurt. I was upset that Arkansas lost to Louisiana Monroe. But what does Arkansas have to do, not to win the game, but just to compete in the game?
All right, first of all, Mark, I assume we're going to go on record Friday.
Yes,
with our predictions.
We just want to talk about what it's going to take for Arkansas to compete.
And I'm not 100% sold on where I'm going yet, so that's something you need to really tune in for on Friday. But, I look at the way Nick Saban likes to play against Arkansas. Bobby Petrino era, likes a lot of 3 coverage, 3 deep, likes a lot of 4 coverage, playing quarters. I think he likes his linebackers to come downhill, so if Arkansas throws some things underneath, he believes his guys are good enough to tackle. I think it's key for Arkansas, though, if we flip to our defense. We've got to win the battle on 1st and 2nd down. I watched Alabama against Western Kentucky, and I like a lot of teams, they're not great on 3rd and long. Even 3rd and medium, they're not great. Where Alabama really gets you is when they can get in 3rd and short. A.J. McCarron is a lot more accurate when he's throwing the ball on 1st and 2nd down against a base defensive look. A.J. McCarron really becomes average when he's throwing against a pass defense. Now, it is our pass defense, so he may go from looking average to looking great. But I'm just saying, for Arkansas, you want to keep A.J. McCarron out of 3rd and manageable situations, make him face a pass defense. He's not nearly as effective. And for Arkansas, this is where Paul, if you want to make up for it, you do it this week because you can. This Alabama secondary, if you scheme the right way, it can be had. But you can't just go out there, spread it out 3 wide, and play chuck and duck Texas Tech football. That won't get it. If you scheme the right way, if you come out with the right formations, Get Alabama to put base personnel. That means we don't need a lot of receivers on the field at times. Put a couple of receivers, use your tight ends and your backs. That'll keep Alabama honest. Then we can run certain routes to take advantage of their coverage. If Paul Petrino schemes the right way and the way he can, I believe he can, I'm not sure anymore, but the way he can, Arkansas has a chance to do some things. Now, I got to have a healthy Tyler Wilson above everything.
Yeah. Before last week, this game would have been one of those that Arkansas needed to win. Mm-hmm. It would have been a lot of pressure. It would have been a lot of pressure on the program, a lot of pressure on the players and coaches to win the game. It would have just been a different atmosphere than it's going to be. I mean, it was going to be an electric atmosphere, probably even more electric than it's going to end up being because of the loss. But to me, I think things changed when Arkansas lost in the fact that they don't have anything to lose. Before, it was Arkansas needs to win this game because it's the next evolution of the program. It's the next step. You've got to beat Alabama. You've got to beat Nick Saban to get to where you want to be as a program. Now, I see this as Arkansas comes into this game. They got nothing to lose. Nobody expects us to beat them. Nobody expects, and as a player, I'd think everybody, even our fan base is down on us. You got people Twitter messaging Jeff Long telling him he should resign. He should fire himself. You got John L. Smith, people saying he's worthless, and Paul Petrino and Paul Haynes, and but you got lots of people saying a lot of different things about these coaches and these players, and now their back's up against the wall. You can come out fighting or you can quit. It's one of two different things, and I think that Arkansas is going to come out fighting, whether it has anything to do with the outcome of the game, whether they can actually win the game.
I agree with that.
But there's a 23-point spread right now. I'm not a bettor, but we were talking about this before the show. I'd take Arkansas. I expect that Alabama is that much better than Arkansas. There's a reason they've got bettors on both sides that line is at 23 where it is. You've got people picking Alabama. You've got the same amount of people picking Arkansas. That's why it's where it is. So I think Alabama's better, but Arkansas's got nothing to lose. And to me, this game kind of reminds, now it's apples to oranges because South Carolina hadn't just lost to Louisiana Monroe, but when South Carolina played Alabama in 2010,
yeah, I remember that.
right after they'd beaten Arkansas, after Alabama had beaten Arkansas, they played them at South Carolina. They came out with just a ton of emotion. And Marcus Lattimore, I think he had like 40 carries in the game. It was just an intense game. They played on a lot of emotion, and a lot of times that runs out in the first quarter or so. But when you've got a lead and you've got a chance, Arkansas is going to have a chance to get ahead early in the game if they can stop Alabama and score. You can play with that pride, you can play with that emotion, and it can carry you a lot further. It's going to have to carry Arkansas above its ability.
Yeah,
that's the bottom line. It's going to have to do that.
And that's really the blueprint that I laid out on Monday. Was I think Arkansas is going to try to show a lot of character. We've talked about Niall Davis being a great leader, Tyler Wilson a great leader, leading them through this whole Bobby Petrino mess. And if they really do have the character that we've all said they've had, how they've handled this tremendously, then it will show against Alabama early. Now, great point you made. Can they sustain it? You can't ride these adrenaline, emotional waves for 4 quarters against a great football team. But, Mark, I look at this, and the reason why I'm not quite as down on Arkansas is talent-wise, they may be a little bit worse than we thought they would be, but they can't be that much worse. If I had to say, was Arkansas's loss to ULM had to do more with talent or just being sloppy, I would definitely weight it towards being sloppy. So before that ULM game, we gave Arkansas a chance to be in that game and possibly win it. I think Arkansas's talent level isn't too far off from what we thought it would be. It's just going to come down to these coaches insisting on crisp, sharp execution all week in practice and leading into the game. Because, Mark, even though the team's a little bit of a disappointment, I think a sharp Arkansas team gives Alabama a heck of a game Saturday. A sharp Arkansas team, even with the talent level not being quite what we expected.
All right, this is the fan in me speaking, and you may not hear this fan on Friday because I will try my best to be as objective as I can, give you my prediction and what I think is going to happen based on the evidence laid out in front of me. But let's let the heart speak for just a moment.
Go ahead.
Even though you're going to play with all that emotion, you're still going to have to execute against the defending national champion.
Yes.
Which is what and this is why I think it could be a good comparison to the South Carolina game of a couple years ago. Arkansas's got to have a couple things go right for them early on in the game, and that's what happened for South Carolina. They had a lead. They held it. But then you have to execute, like you said, against the top coach team in the country. And you've still got to make plays. And I think that there are guys, playmakers, Kobe Hamilton, Chris Gregg, Niall Davis, Tyler Wilson. You've got guys who can make plays. And if they can make those plays against that Alabama team that, for all its glory and splendor, is still kind of unproven, you've got a chance to do something special. And that's, to me, just staying in the game. You stay in the game long enough in Fayetteville, and who knows, a miracle might happen. Kobe Hamilton tweeted this morning that it's all set up for a perfect ending to the story.
Yeah.
I don't really care for the way that they set that ending up, but
I don't like that either.
But, either way, Friday, we'll break the game down.
He said he didn't pick Arkansas, but he's like, oh, don't be surprised. He's not quite down.
Yeah, he won't go all the way there and say that Arkansas is going to win the game, but I hope Arkansas can win the game. I'll just put it that way. We'll be back on Friday. We'll break down these high school games in greater detail. Thank you to all of our sponsors. Go to Sports Scene. Go pick you up an AR Sports magazine. Visit all these fine sponsors and let them know the Sports Blitz sent you. Thank you for visiting the RiverValleyLeader.com. And come back on Friday. For Weldon, I'm Mark. So long. We'll talk to you again on Friday.
AR Sports present the 2012 River Valley Football Magazine, featuring profiles of local high school football teams, as well as college football previews and player spotlights. Professional photography accompanies top-notch writing throughout to bring you the best locally focused publication in Arkansas. You'll enjoy special tributes to local legends Jerry Aiken and Don Sevier, as well as an exclusive interview with Razorback all-time great Clint Sterner in this year's magazine. Available at fine establishments throughout the River Valley. Pick up your copy of River Valley Football Magazine today.
Today, there are more than 20 brands of cars being sold in America. So to be noticed, Ford and Cogswell Motors have to go further than anyone thought we could. How does Ford stand out above the crowd? Not just with plug-in vehicles like the new 2013 Ford Fusion Energy that gets a projected 100 miles per gallon equivalent, but also with a line of gas vehicles equipped with the innovative EcoBoost engines combining power and efficiency, plus a full measure of technologically advanced features. We invite you to stop into Cogswell Motors today. We go further than anyone thought we could, so that you can go further too.
RiverValleyLeader.com.